Hey y'all, Michelle Raza here with the Finding Yourself Book Club. Today we're going to talk about Lindsay Gibson's Adult Children of Emotionally Immature Parents. For those of you that followed along on the series, we did do a summary, so chapters 1 through 5. I was pretty much just reading, right? The videos were somewhat long, had to be broken up into multiple parts in order to fit on YouTube and on my phone, which I record on. And so the last couple of videos, I just summarized or talked about some of the stories that we had to skip over in the summaries. Today we're going to talk about chapter 7, which is Breaking Down and Awakening. Okay, so within this chapter, we talk about what is the true self, what does the true self want, and then breaking down in order to wake up. If you haven't had a chance, please do check out our website. We're at www.findingyourselfsatx.com. There you can take our free life balance questionnaire and send it to us. You can also just fill out a contact form and we'll be in touch. Here we have Eileen's story. Sorry, I have like a little something on my... Okay. My client Eileen was an insightful woman, and she had benefited greatly from psychotherapy over the years. Her love of learning made her want to understand herself and other people, but her family saw that kind of psychological interest as a sign of maladjustment. When Eileen sought therapy after a very destructive love affair, her family thought she was being ridiculous and labeled her the sick one. Rather than seeing that Eileen was using her emotional pain as a tool for growth and self-understanding, they wondered why she was wasting so much time and money rehashing the past. Eileen knew what she was doing was the right thing by coming to therapy, but worried that maybe she was the sick one in the family. At one level, she knew better, based on her awareness of her parents' immaturity, impulsivity, and avoidance of emotional intimacy. But it still seemed odd to her that she was the only family member who felt the need for help. Learning about Dabrowski's idea of positive disintegration helped Eileen see her distress as growing pains, and once she knew about Dabrowski's growth theory, she felt proud of herself for being the only person in her family willing to explore her distress in order to find a healthier way of being. And so here we move on to waking up from an outdated role self and Virginia's story. Virginia's wake-up call came in the form of sudden onset of panic attacks that occurred when she felt criticized by her tyrannical and judgmental older brother, Brian. Virginia had always worried constantly about what people thought of her, so much so that social events were exhausting triathlons of reading other people, trying not to give offense and imagining imminent rejection. At work, she miserably obsessed over how people saw her. Virginia came to therapy to get a grip on her panic, and she did. But she also ended up realizing how unaccepted she'd felt as a child. Through therapy, Virginia realized that Brian had the same disapproving manner as their deceased father, who had always left Virginia feeling inept and unloved. She began to understand that her social anxiety was a reflection of her childhood role, in which she repeatedly and unsuccessfully tried to win the love of her critical and disdainful father. Her subconscious healing fantasy was that one day she would finally be correct enough to gain his approval. She had unconsciously taken on the role of playing the scared, inadequate child to her father's wise and powerful persona, and now Brian was his stand-in. Virginia's anxiety attacks signaled that she was beginning to question her childhood belief that the authority figure is always right. She told me, if people expressed any displeasure with me, especially men, I got frightened and automatically assumed I must be wrong. But now she was able to see her relationship with Brian more clearly. I've been putting him on a pedestal, like he's some kind of god. He doesn't care about me, yet I let him determine whether I feel good or not. I've always been so concerned about his opinion, but now I'm getting a bit more self-contained. I feel as if I'm just learning to be an individual. Without the wake-up call of her panic attacks, Virginia might have just kept on deferring to others in a cloud of self-depreciating anxiety. Her panic attacks ushered in a new consciousness in which she no longer needed to accept the story of male infallibility she'd been indoctrinated with as a child, a story that had been destroying her self-esteem as an adult woman. Her role self of being the weak and confused little girl collapsed as she realized that she could choose whether she wanted contact with Brian or not. She could finally be aware of how she really felt about her father and brother, who jointly had made her the least important member of the family. The spell was broken. Okay, I'm looking up here. We have a few more stories. I think I'll read one more. This chapter has a lot of stories, actually. I think I'll read one more and then cover the next ones in the next video. Okay, so this is under Waking Up to How You Really Feel. Tildy's story. Tildy Tildy had so much to feel grateful for that she couldn't stop feeling guilty. She'd been born to a single mother who did domestic work to support them both. Her mother, Kajja, had come to the United States from Sweden to make a better life for her as a child. She scraped together every cent she could earn so that Tildy could get a good education. Tildy had taken full advantage of her opportunities and eventually earned an advanced degree in graphic design on a scholarship. She was nearing the end of her training when she came to see me for an episode of major depression. Although she was still able to work, every morning began with the struggle to take action. As soon as she got out of bed, she longed to crawl back under the covers. We traced the onset of her depression to phone calls to her mother, who was becoming increasingly petulant and bitter as Tildy neared completion of her studies. Kajja had always been emotional and never let Tildy forget how she single-handedly raised her after being abandoned by Tildy's father and coming to the United States. In every conversation, Kajja complained about physical ailments and people who had recently done her wrong. Tildy was sympathetic, and besides, she felt she owed her mother everything. But the strain of listening helplessly to Kajja's angry misery was wearing her down. Tildy felt nothing she said to her mother ever seemed to help. I asked Tildy how she felt when Kajja brushed off her sympathy and continued with her complaints. At first, Tildy would only say how guilty she felt for not being able to make her mother feel better, and what a bad daughter she was for enjoying her life while Kajja suffered. But when I persisted and asked how it felt in her body when she heard her mother's voice, Tildy finally let herself feel it. She looked stunned as she identified the feeling. "I don't like her," she said in a whisper. This was Tildy's emotional truth, which had been at war with her childhood healing fantasy of finally giving Kajja enough love to make up for her disappointing life. Tildy's exaggerated guilt and gratitude had prevented her from experiencing her true emotions about her mother. The ironclad family story was that Kajja had sacrificed everything and therefore deserved Tildy's total attention and devotion. When Tildy began to resent her mother's ceaseless complaining, her guilt turned her own unacknowledged anger into depression. Tildy's depression lifted as soon as she accepted her genuine feelings toward Kajja. Finally allowing herself to know that she didn't like her mother, even though she was grateful to her, released her from an impossible bind. She realized that she could still have contact with her mother, but that she didn't have to pretend to feel the right way. So heavy stuff here. It is very hard, right, to understand that you love your family and you've been craving an emotional closeness and connection with them, and they love you in their own way, but they may not be ready to reciprocate emotionally, which is, it's just very hard, right? And then especially if somebody, like in this case Tilda's story, right, her mother gave her everything and then expects Tilda to kind of give up her life to take care of her, that guilt is very, very hard. So I'm not sitting here pretending that any of this stuff is easy. The first step in trying to fix it is even just recognizing that these are issues. Lindsay goes on in the book to talk about how to overcome this. And really it's just accepting the form of love that your family can give, which may not be that emotional closeness and connection that you're craving, setting good boundaries, and then building those emotionally fulfilling relationships with people who can reciprocate, whether a close circle of friends or a romantic relationship, and then your children, you know, changing the cycle and the dynamic for your own family. So if you're watching this, I mean, most likely you're an internalizer. You're looking to, you have this hollow, empty feeling that you're looking to fill. I hope these videos help. If you'd like to chat more, please do visit our website and fill out a contact form. We're at www.findingyourselfsatx.com. Look forward to talking with you guys soon.